this lighting is interesting. Good morning, folks. Can you see me? You can't really see me. I have just enjoyed my coffee. It is nearly gone. Right at the top of the video, I did want to mention that November 16th, I'm very excitingly going to be attending an online conference, one of Reedsy's online conferences. I've taken their classes before, just always so interesting to get like actual insight into the industry via professionals. The How to Get a Publishing Deal one is coming up on the 16th, like a 1-day 4-hour event. The different kinds of publishers and then like which one might fit your story or your book. Literary agents, the role that they play, whether or not you need one. And then best practices for query letter writing. In a rush, it just like came out of me one night. I want to say it was like December last year, like December 2024. And I'll put my code on the screen and stuff if you guys are interested. If you get one of their memberships, it's like $249 for the whole year. And they will have the guy who runs it every like Friday. He'll read your stuff. You can submit like a chapter or 10 pages or something like that, and he will read your work. I cannot tell you how eye-opening it really is when you've written something, you're like, okay, this is, I've tweaked this, I'm pretty happy with this, and then you send it off, and then you hear somebody else reading your work. I cannot tell you how obvious it becomes, and so quickly, that, something's off. Like you need to tweak something in the sentence, something is worded awkward. I had like 3 similes in a row and somehow did not catch that. Like as soon as he started reading, I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. I can hear it already. And of course he was like scribbling things out. It's like a live editing session. Right now I need to get into the actual editing process. I am like halfway through. I think that's where I left you guys last vlog. My very quick sort of catch up for you is that I am working on an adult fantasy novel, a dark academia novel called Project Souls. I finished at just under 120,000 words, and my current goal with draft 2 is literally that it's an everything edit. So I'm looking at plot, I'm looking at character, I'm looking at pacing, I'm looking at the writing, I'm looking at all of it. My main goal has actually been to cut. Fantasy can be longer. It's not crazy to say that this novel is 120,000 words. Like that's not actually that long for a fantasy novel, but I would like to cut because I know that a lot of times I tend to repeat myself or I kind of over elaborate, and I just want the prose to be very punchy, very quick, very quippy. My main character, June, she has this sort of necromancy kind of ability. Just want her, she's very sarcastic. She's got like a very dark humor. And now I need to actually get to work instead of just sitting here talking. I promise this room will look done one day. It's gonna be so cute. Do you see how disgusting the manuscript is getting? Anyway, what I was gonna do was take you guys through like a section of text, like a passage, not a whole chapter. We do not have the time for that. I was gonna take you through and actually show you guys like what I'm looking at and like actively do the editing with you. We are in a sauna. That is what I'll tell you. We're in a sauna. Main character June has just had like a little training meditation thing. So she's coming back into this manor, this very fancy house turned school. But when she goes in there, She is not alone. There's already somebody there, and it's a girl who is, for better lack of a better term, kind of her arch nemesis. Now they're kind of stuck together in a small space, which is always so much fun to write because it's like forced proximity. Okay, folks, I'm interrupting myself because I realized doing this in real time is just not realistic. If you are somebody who feels like you are never gonna finish a project, whatever the creative project is, doesn't even mean that it's writing a book, you are so not the only one. This is just kind of an overview of what it looks like. And yes, I left you, I remember leaving you off as I was discussing wanting a better metaphor for the layers of emotion. I think I'm gonna strike out the dead body, even though I do love a dead body metaphor. We're gonna strike that out. So I'm gonna have Scarlett say something about mille fois. That makes a lot more sense for her to say rather than just like a cake, because she did grow up with money. June is very much a street rat. It does make sense that like it would not be consistent for June to know what mille fois was, but it is consistent for Scarlett to know. So I'm going to say something like, June was only familiar with the term because they had been served a dessert by that name the night prior. Scarlett really was looking at her like a mouthful of the most decadent dessert was dissolving on her tongue, and it was thoroughly creeping June out. I just used dessert twice in a row, so I always try to remove or change instead of saying dessert. Okay, so I like decadent dessert because they both start with D, so it sounds nice. Decadent dessert. I'm gonna say a pastry. It was a similar feeling to when men looked her over the same way they might a slab of grilled meat. June's head swam the way it did when Mateo was near. He's the love interest. M stands for Mateo, J is June, S is Scarlett. She felt heat drunk and slightly horny. Scarlett gazed beneath her lashes. June stared back, realizing what was happening. So to give you a little bit of context, Scarlett has the ability to essentially, like kind of like Jasper from Twilight, she can tweak mood, but it's more specific to drive, pheromones, hormones, that kind of thing. I didn't give you permission to, and then we cut off. Hardly. Scarlett cut her off. And normally I abstain. Nobody here feels much of anything besides homesickness and regret. Two of the worst. They taste like unripe fruit, like biting into pith. But I knew you were different from the rest. As soon as I sniffed you out. June must have looked confused because Scarlett continued that first night at dinner. Okay, so you can kind of see where I have struck things out. Originally, I said nobody here feels much of anything very deeply, except perhaps regret. But all the other students are humans, so obviously they feel things very deeply. Then kept pretty much everything, added a split in the dialogue because I wanted there to be a moment where June didn't really understand what she was saying when she says, as soon as I sniffed you out. I felt like maybe she would be kind of confused at that. I could totally keep it just as it was. And honestly, it might be more concise. So this is a situation where maybe I actually should keep how it is originally. June shook her head. I'm no different than anyone here. Oh, but you are. Now the squiggle under R means I want to italicize it. There are proper symbols for you to use when you're editing that an actual professional editor would use. I'm not a professional editor, so I do little things that I know what they mean. A grin snaked its way across Scarlett's face, the sound of it creeping into her words. So I did change was snaking, which is passive. I do this a lot. I have a feeling this is a very common thing. It is still in published books. It's not like a cardinal sin of writing, but I do find if you can make it more active with whatever the verb is, it's so much more punchier and more effective. They've been tracking you for years, you know, and you fell right into their snare. Scarlett sighed and sat back then, crossing one moon-pale leg over the other. Though who could blame you? Or any of us, really. We're a lot more alike than you think. It's so enticing, isn't it? The promise of community, the alluring exclusivity of it all. Scarlett twirled her finger around, metaphorically encompassing the house's every black brick. It was at this moment, listening to her drone on, that June realized she really liked to hear herself talk. I wanted to add in this little quippy line because June is very sarcastic, but she has a really good detector. I realized as I was reading this dialogue that it's just like, I don't know, some people, the way that they talk, I don't like Scarlett. She's annoying. She's a mean girl. She's the Regina George of the book. You just cringe to hear them talk. And so I wanted to add like a funny inner dialogue, like inner commentary to let us, the reader, know that June finds her annoying. And then she continues, "But you don't feel any different now than you did then, do you?" Scarlett finished. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Betrayal," Scarlett blurted, "the vocal equivalent of stomping her foot. That's what it means." New paragraph. June remained calm, but felt like her torso had been transformed into glass, putting her heart on display. Now this is quite a bit different than it looked originally. The while Scarlett continued, we get that she's continuing because the dialogue continues. So this is another example of like being really wordy or kind of like over-explaining. I feel like a lot of people do this. You still see this in published books, but I am trying to be a little bit better about cutting out unnecessary dialogue tags, that kind of thing, as I go through and look at it. And Scarlett is talking about what betrayal tastes like. So she says, "Tangy, metallic, a mouthful of blood and iron." Scarlett continued in a whisper, her emerald eyes glazing over as a memory became flesh again. "What did she do to you?" June wondered aloud. That is that full page. I'm going to stop there. I also wanted to thank you guys for your comments on my last video where I read chapter 1. I haven't gone through everything yet. I haven't had the time to like really sit down and comb through the comments, but I do appreciate everyone who has commented because I obviously want chapter 1 to be as polished as it could possibly be. Hi, hello friends. This whole process is just such a blur because it's just me sitting with the manuscript just for hours on end. I'm in chapter 22. I think I've got 423 pages, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that I'm quite like 2/3 of the way done yet. We just started winter. So if you don't know, my book takes place during a school year. And so we've just started, this is the page where winter begins. So we start in we start in late summer. And then we have fall, winter, and then spring, and then the book ends. So that's like roughly like the timeline. And so anyway, so we just started winter. So we have my little winter description. And so I've just edited that. And so now I'm on the smaller side now, which feels nice to see this big chunk that I've edited, but I've got this left to do. So without further ado, I just need to start.